Eric Mother.com. Let's take a look at stocks that gap up, because sometimes you never really know whether a stock that gapped up is gonna have more upside. So for example, if a stock gaps up, as a general rule, one thing you can do is watch for the next day or the next week. So if you see a follow through, which means a higher close on the second day after gapping up, so let's call this day number 1 or week number 1. If you see that the second day or week number 2 is a follow through, in other words, you got a positive back-to-back move after this gap up, that tends to give you an indication that there's more upside. So the follow through on the weekly or on the daily after the initial gap up is what tells you whether a stock has the potential to continue adding on to gains. So let's take a look at some examples. Let's take a look at the first one, KBIO. You see a gap up here, and then you got day number 1, and then day number 2 there's a follow through, it closes higher. So that was your first indication that the stock might have some upside. Since then it's gone on to more than double. Let's take a look at Weight Watchers. Recently had this nice gap up, and you can see that after day number 1, day number 2, it had a positive close also. So that follow through gave you indication that there could be more upside, and the next breakout took place with another gap up, and that also did coincide with another positive close after that gap up. So that was confirmation on those two gaps, gap number 1 and gap number 2, which might explain why the stock continues to move higher. Let's take a look at another recent gap up here at SPHS, and you can see this huge gap up here, and on the second day it managed to close higher. So that means that anybody watching this can continue watching for the next breakout, because we've seen a follow through, which as a general rule tends to indicate that there's more upside down the road. Take a look at VLTC. Had a huge gap up here in April and had a follow through. In other words, the second day after the gap up it closed higher. That closing high gave indication that the stock had more upside. Stock went on to have a massive run from about $3 all the way to $21 in less than 2 weeks. This also happens on the way down. Take a look at VRX. You have this massive plunge here on day number 1, and then on day number 2 it closes lower. Since then the stock has gone on to record lower levels. Take a look at lumber liquidators, and now we're going to take a look at the weekly, because it can also be followed through on the weekly, and we can see gap down here on a weekly basis, and on the second week it closes lower. Since then the stock is trading much lower. So watch out for those follow throughs. Eric Mother.com. Good luck, peace and blessings.